All right. Hello. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well. And welcome to our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. Thank you all for joining and staying with us until the end. So, our dear audience, today I am your host for the evening. I am Brendale Lomares, or you can call me Dale. I am from the Philippines, and now I currently teach and work here in Vietnam as an English teacher. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I feel so honored and privileged to host this webinar. And it's my delight to welcome you all to our Institution of Global Professional free webinar. Again, thank you for joining us tonight in this marvelous evening, and it's my humble request and pleasure for all of you to stay with us until the end. For I am sure you will have many takeaways and payoffs from this webinar. Also, from time to time, you can like and comment in our webinar. Please don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends in the comment box. So let's watch and learn together because we believe that power is gained by sharing knowledge and by not hoarding it. Once again, I am Vrendale, core volunteer, a member of IGP from the Philippines. Every day, there are some new participants who join us, so I have to share a little background about IGP. First and foremost, IGP stands for Institution of Global Professionals that serves students and community resources, providing holistic social work and education to create a proficient generation. IGP is a leading an online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We make use for every knowledge seeker to originate personality, to be more ambitious, to be confident, to face any circumstances, and to develop own skills. We are also entrusted with international recognitions. So, Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institution that provides social work. We believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. So, we provide effective trainings and consultations to generate proficiency all over the world. And we recognized our webinars, trainings, offline and online courses, and many more with the best and trained speakers, coaches from all around the world to create the best learning platform for all of you. Our mission is to empower and to enhance people like you. And we have already completed 190 webinars successfully. So we expect that all of you are getting values in personal development and in professional growth. And we wish that you will stay with us together in this long journey. Let me remind you again, please don't forget to share, tag, comment, and mention your friends in the comment box because your attachment encourage us to do better and best service to our lovely audiences. Again, our mission is to empower our youth, so please support us by staying all throughout the session. I am earnestly welcoming you all. Now, today, we are presenting the webinar, which is 191 on E-Gradebook for teachers with four speakers. How lucky we are, such as Dr. Nestor P. Nuesca, Mr. Redentor Bulanadi, Ms. Trisha May M. Ramos, and Mr. Mark Rostam C. Valentin. So let's start our program. Our mantra, feed your skill. Shall we? Our first speaker, we've got Dr. Nestor P. Nuesca. He is an education program supervisor from the Department of Education, Region 3 in the Philippines. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Nuesca. Hello, sir.
Hello, ma'am. Good
Yes,
evening.
good evening.
I want to start this
Floor is
session
yours.
with a famous quotation taken from Anonymous, an unknown person. And I quote, curiosity is an important trait of a genius, and discovery is part of it. I'm Nestor Pinuesca. I studied Bachelor of Science in Mathematics at the Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, College of Engineering and Technology, and finished my master's degree, MAED, and doctor's degree at Makati University and the Berhen de los Remedios College, Philippines. An education program supervisor, dissertation and thesis advisor, also an statistician, mathematician, computer tech, database, web programmer, and of course, academician by profession at the Department of Education, Philippines. I'm a BPSP and Smart Scholar of Globe and a global ambassador of this institution, international group of professionals. I spend much of my time teaching mathematics and statistics, research management, ICT programming in high school, postgraduate, students. I manage numerous seminars in both math contents and pedagogies, supervise write shop or even seminars on contextualization and localization of teaching and learning materials. The teaching profession is such blessing, and one of the teacher's most important jobs is to nurture and teach learners how to think. Again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants all over the world. My deepest respect also to the organizer of this online session and IGP founder, Sir Koshik. Along with me are my co-educators in the Department of Education, Philippines, who will be introduced later. I ask their presence to help me discuss the essentials of a gradebook, the basis of crafting this innovation and pilot testing, the checking of reliability and validity of this teacher support material. All of these topics related will be tackled later. So stay with us and assume you'll learn from it. Okay, so the term rational, as you have as seen in on the presentation, is a fundamental reasons for something or a logical basis of course of action or a particular belief. The objectives and reasons why we introduce the A grade book to you and to our students or teachers is to help you understand and able to craft your own or innovate and utilize it in computing grades to our students. There are lots of teachers support materials out there, but this is something new and different. This is something new and different. So the objectives and reasons why introduce this A grade book to you and to our teachers is of course to help you understand. No, sabi ko, that's what I have said a while ago, and able to craft your own and innovate, utilize it in computing your grades or the grades of your students. And as I have said, there are lots out there. No? There are lots of teacher support materials out there, but but this is something new and different. Now, to have an in-depth idea, the A grade book is an online tool which will be used in computing grades. This is an MS Excel utilizing the built-in programs, the lookup and reference and functions in order to come up with one. The A grade book, or we call it electronic grade book, well, this program primarily helps teachers in computing student grades easily compared to the traditional way, which is paper and pencil. No? It is based on the Dead End Memo number 8, series 2015, which will be elaborated later by Madam Tricia. And of course, this is suited for K to 12. K and the kindergarten, from kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, up to grade 12. Grade 11 and grade 12 in the Philippines, we have already senior high school, no? From kindergarten, junior high school, and senior high school. Senior high schools is grade 11 and grade 12. So they can utilize this also. And then this kind of tool is user friendly and provided help and support for the user. And well, I just give you how a book is all about. The overall view will be discussed next by my co-discussant. So thank you so much.
All right, so thank you so much for that, Dr. Nuesca,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
yes, for a brief introduction of the electronic gradebook designed for teachers.
Yeah.
So we would definitely understand how important this is nowadays with the new normal life that we've got
Yes.
after this pandemic. So it's interesting for us to know the know-hows of
Mm-mm.
electronic gradebook, comparing it to the traditional one, the paper and pencil test or the
Yes, ma'am.
paper and pencil grading system.
That
So
is
this is
absolutely
really
correct.
interesting.
Yes.
Yes. I myself is excited and curious of what we've got for us to present to our audience, and I hope that we will be learning a lot, and I'm sure of that.
Mm.
Okay, so our next speaker for tonight, that's going to be, we've got Mr. Redentor Bolandi. He is a head teacher 3 from the Department of Education. And congratulations for being an outstanding teacher in your municipality. Wow, what a great achievement. So, everyone, let's welcome Mr. Redentor Bolandi.
Yes, good evening, Ma'am Dale. Thank you very much. Again, I just want to introduce myself. Good evening, good morning, Mayap Abengi. That's how we greet good evening in our dialect. Good morning to those who are in other countries that who are joining in the platform. So again, I'm Mr. Redentor Tabamo from the Philippines, head teacher 3 and assigned as officer in charge of the assistant school principal of our senior high school. I've been in the field of teaching for more than 30 years and given the chance also to teach overseas in Brunei Darussalam, wherein I handled upper primary teaching mathematics in Brunei Darussalam. Here in the Philippines, I serve also as a coach and at present I am the president of Mathematics Teachers Associations of the Philippines Untitled Chapter and awarded as outstanding teacher of our LGU. So I'm very much pleased and delighted to be again in the 199 series of IGP. At this point, before I started my talk, I just want to thank also again our regional supervisor for giving us the chance to be included and to be one of the speaker of this international webinar. And it will help not only us but also to the teachers as well. So the same thing with Dr. Nweska. I will just give you a short uh, topic about the importance of classrooms assessment. Later on, our two brilliant speaker will elaborate all of this. And definitely, as our host say, you will take away a lot of new ideas instead of focusing with the paper and pencil, the traditional one in computation of grades. But since we are already in the modern technology, so that is the reason why it is a must that we need to adapt. So you can adapt this one as a tools in order for you to help to make our job easy. So my topic is all about importance of classroom assessment. I just want to give some important notes about classroom assessment. Okay. So Ma'am Tricia, please next slide. So why assessment is very important. So I just want to define first what is a classroom assessment. So when you say classroom assessment, it is a joint process that involve both teachers and learners where it is considered as integral part of the educational curriculum. So later on, I will not elaborate this one anymore because I do not want to preempt the topic of to be discussed by Ma'am Tricia. So again, when you say classroom assessment, it is a joint process that involves both teachers and learners where it is considered an integral part of education curriculum. So it is very important to assess how far and what are the things that our students know or don't know in order for us to determine where we start our our system. Okay, next slide please. So here are the importance of classroom assessment. Number one, serve as a basis. So as I've said a while ago, this will serve as a basis to make a plan in order for us so that we can establish a good rapport between our student and we as a teacher. It determines whether or not the educational goals are met. So once we have the classroom assessment, So especially with our objectives, we're able to determine if our goal or objectives were able to attain, especially with the most essential learning competencies. Number two, affect and decision. Affect and decisions about grades, placement, advancement, and instructional needs. So after through classroom assessments, we're able to affect our decision. So that one, what remedy can we give? Do we need to give remedial classes to our student based on the result of classroom assessment? And at the same times, we can design our own strategies, because not all the strategies that we're using, especially nowadays with different modalities, there are some modalities that is applicable to one group which are not applicable to other group. Number three, check and balance. So this is also one way to make a check and balance as we uh, as we teaching uh, as we teaching what we think we are teaching our student learning what they are supposed to learning. So that means as a teacher and a students, there is what we call check and balance, so that as I've said, we can establish a good rapport between our students. There must be a check and balance between the teacher as well as the students. Next please. Identifies effective teaching strategies. Through classroom assessment, we were able to design our own strategies, as I've said, that is suited to one group, which are not suited to one group. So through classroom assessment, if there are a way to teach the subject much better, much better. So again, as I've told you, because there are some strategies or modalities nowadays which are effective to one group. So through classroom assessment, we're able to design our strategies in which we will become an efficient as well as effective teacher, so that the learning process could easily take place. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the benefits of a good classroom assessment? Again, so the following are the benefit of the good classroom assessment. Number one, improve academic achievements. Okay, so when you say improve academic achievement, teachers are provide regular feedback to students that would help them reach their goal. So again, through classroom assessments, we're able to improve as or provide some regular feedback through classroom assessment, not only on our part as an effective as well as efficient teacher, but also to our students. Next, so define learning goals. So through this, we're able to monitor or monitoring students' progress regularly helps keep learning goals top of mind, so the students have a clear target to work towards in achieving their goal. Okay, so and then we have, next slide please, data driven decisions. So through this one, using the data gathered, we were able from the frequent learning check empowers. So we're able to make data driven decisions. So later on, it will be elaborated by our next speaker. Everything, I just give you an introduction about the benefits of good classroom assessment. Okay, and the next one, please. So remember, assessment is the engine which drive student learning. So that is according to John Cowan. So as I've told you, I just give you a short introduction about the importance as well as the benefits of classroom assessment. I do not want to preempt the discussion of Ma'am Tricia regarding classroom assessment as well as the different assessment tools to be used for our topic for today. Okay. So in that case, I just want to thank you very much. So again, as I've said, my topic is will not last only for 5 minutes. I keep on telling you, I do not want to preempt the discussion of our next speaker. So with that, thank you very much, Ma'am Dale. It's nice to see you and to see another beautiful moderator of IGP. So thank you very much, ma'am. Later on, we will see you in the Q&A.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely, sir. Thank you so much, Sir Redentor. And thank you as well for your kind words. Nice meeting you. Already. So, yeah, I actually kind of would want to express as well how luckily we are for us to be reminded as teachers myself, for us to be reminded of the importance of classroom assessment, that we always have to go back to the foundation of us, why we are doing different types of assessment. And it is for us, it is really for our students, for us to gauge if whatever we've designed for our students are really working or not. So yeah, it all boils down for the love of towards our students. So we thank you so much for that, and we cannot wait to get to know more about the details of our electric grade book designed for us teachers. So once again, let's have our third speaker, and it is my privilege to introduce the regional validator and speaker from the Department of Education, Region 3. And this is Miss Trisha May M. Ramos. Please welcome her, everyone. The floor is yours, ma'am. Good
Good
evening.
evening, ma'am. Good evening. Before I start my presentation, I'll be presenting my short video background so as to introduce me as the speaker, the third speaker for today.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
The love of numbers and to demystify how things work, catapulted to become a math wizard and a research enthusiast. Surprising that she is practicing teaching by profession and has been recently the favorite to be invited on selected conferences. Graduated cum laude at Tarlac Agricultural University for her undergraduate studies in 2015. She continued her education at Philippine Normal University and obtained a degree in Master of Arts in Mathematics Education with specialization in secondary school teaching in June 2021. Her wisdom and talent were also recognized internationally as she participated in the International Conference in Computer Engineering and Mathematical Sciences held in Langkawi, Malaysia in 2018, and the MathTED 12 Biennial International Conference in Mathematics Education held in Palawan, Philippines in 2019. Just recently, she was invited as a regional speaker and discussed the essence of being the quality assurance validator and facilitator for DepEd Region 3. Without any further delay, please welcome our speaker, Ms. Trisha May Ramos.
Thank you for that wonderful.
A pleasant evening, a pleasant morning, and an afternoon to everyone on this platform. For today's topic, I will be dealing with one of the most essential part of the teaching and learning process, which is classroom assessment. And it is clearly explained and discussed here in our DepEd Memorandum number 8, series of 2015 and other related memoranda. Again, my name is Trisha May M. Ramos. I am a senior high school teacher too from Kaniling School for Home Industry, Tarlac Province under the Department of Education, Philippines. Today's session objective first is to define classroom assessment. Second one, we are to differentiate formative from summative assessment. Third, we are to enumerate the components of summative assessment. And lastly, we are to explain the grading system used and the innovation that will be presented, which is our electronic gradebook. Today's presentation is divided into four parts. First, we are to discuss the definition, the meaning of classroom assessment and its types. The second one, we are to answer the question, what is assessed inside the classroom? The third one, again, we are trying to answer the question, how are learners assessed in the classroom? Third one, or rather fourth one, we have the grading system that is used in the electronic gradebook. Let's start off with a simple question. What is classroom assessment? What do we really assess inside the classroom? When we say classroom assessment is it's an ongoing process of identifying, gathering, organizing, interpreting qualitative and quantitative information about what learners know and can do. As mentioned by Sir Reden a while ago, classroom assessment is an integral part of the curriculum implementation because it allows the teacher to track and measure the learner's progress. Teachers usually provide appropriate assessment to holistically measure learners' ability. Also, classroom assessment will allow our students to have their own reflection about their learning. When we say classroom assessment, it must be aligned with the curriculum standards. Here, teachers must ensure that classroom assessment methods is consistent with the curriculum standards because this will ensure that the appropriate knowledge, skills, understandings are learned and acquired by our dear students. Also, classroom assessment checks and realigns our classroom instruction. Here, from the results of our assessment, teachers can adjust their instruction. When we say adjust, it means teachers could reteach, teachers could remediate, teachers could give enrichment exercises, or also teachers could identify whether the teaching strategy that he or she used is effective. And if it is not, therefore the teacher can replace it or modify it in order to have a fruitful teaching learning process on the next day or on the next lesson. Also, classroom assessment informs the learners, the parents, even the guardians of our students about the students' progress. And what do we really assess inside the classroom as teachers? What are the highlights that we need to look at? In general, we assess what we call learning standards. And learning standards is divided again into four parts. The first one is what we call content standards. Content standards is the essential knowledge and understandings that should be learned by our students. These are the specified scope within a learning strand or a learning domain. And usually, when we say content standards, we answer the question, what should the learners know? This is our guide as teachers. What should the learners know? And as an example, we have here the learners must demonstrate understanding. That mean is the average of the given dataset. If you are to ask yourself, what should the learners know in this example? You could directly answer that the learners must know that the mean is the average of the given dataset. Now that the students have already acquired the essential knowledge and understanding, then what should the students do about that? The students must apply it, wherein it is under the second learning strand, and we call it as performance standards. Performance standards is the abilities, the skills that learners are expected to demonstrate in relation to the knowledge and understandings that they have acquired in the content standards. Performance standards is the integration actually of knowledge, of understanding, skills, which is oftenly expressed through the creation, innovation, performance tasks given to our students, whether it is individual or whether it's collaborative. Usually, teachers may check whether the performance standards has been attained by asking the question, what can learners do with what they know? Or how well do learners do their work? Also, how well do learners use their learning in real life application or in different situations that we give to them? And as an example, we have the learners can solve a real world problem related to me. Going back to our example in our content standards, the students already the students already know the idea that the mean is the average of the given dataset. Therefore, as a performance standards, the students must apply it in a situation wherein that situation is solving a real world problem. With that, we could check that the students have already attained what we call performance standards. Next is the learning competencies. When we say learning competency, it is the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitude that students need to demonstrate in every lesson. Usually, in the teacher's language, we call this as lesson objective, or most likely we are to see this in our curriculum guides given for every subject. And as an example, we have here describe and illustrate mean of group and ungroup data. It is also in relation with our content and our performance standards. And the last learning strand is what we call concept development. It is a scheme that provides for classifying educational goals, objectives, and standards. We often see this whenever we are creating our table of specification, wherein we try to distribute the items equally or based on the weight components that we have per subject, wherein an example of this concept development is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Later on, I'll be giving an example of this concept development. Okay? But before we go to that, let's have an example of a curriculum guide of the Department of Education, Senior High School Department. And the subject here is General Mathematics. We could see here the content standards, the performance standards, and the learning competency that we need to achieve, that we need to discuss, that we need to explain to our students. As an example, our content standard here, the thing that the students should learn is the key concept of function. After knowing, after acquiring the knowledge of functions, the students now must apply it in accurately constructing mathematical models to represent real life situation using function. And this is an example of performance standards. And in order to achieve this too, our daily lesson objective is seen in our learning competency, wherein, for example, we are to represent real life situations using functions, including piecewise function. Incorporating all of this, we could apply it through the cognitive process dimension, wherein it is the fourth learning strand. We use this dimension in order for us to align the assessment process with our K to 12 curriculum. The adapted cognitive dimension may be used as a guide not only in teaching but also in creating uh, assessment tasks for our students. And we have here the first stage, which is remembering, wherein learners can only recall information, retrieve relevant knowledge, wherein we ask our students to identify, to retrieve, to recognize, to duplicate, memorize, and repeat or reproduce. As an example, I have here recall the dates of important events in Philippine history. The next stage is what we call understanding stage, wherein learners can construct meaning from oral, written, and graphic messages given to them. We allow our students, as an example, they interpret, they classify, they summarize, they paraphrase, and discuss. For example, we could allow our students to write a short summary of the events portrayed in the Noli Me Tangere. For our next stage, we have applying, wherein learners can use information to be applied in a procedure or to be applied in a familiar situation or in a new way. We allow our students to demonstrate, to dramatize, to interpret, and to solve. As an example, we could allow our students to illustrate the law of conservation of energy. Next stage is analyzing stage, wherein learners can distinguish parts from a whole. They could determine how one part relate to another part, and the overall structure and purpose can be seen in this stage. Also, in this stage, we allow our students to differentiate, to distinguish, to compare, to contrast, and organize different information, different ideas. And as an example, we have here in mathematics, differentiate rational functions, rational inequality, and rational equations. The second to the last stage is we have evaluating, wherein we allow our students to make judgments to justify their decisions by, for example, having a debate, letting them evaluate, letting them to criticize and have an academic argument. As an example, we allow them to evaluate which of the two methods is the best way to solve the given problem. And the highest among the cognitive process dimension is what we call creating, wherein we allow our students to put elements together in order to form a functional whole, to create a new product, or to create a new point of view. As an example, we allow our students to generate hypotheses to account for an observed phenomenon. All of these can be used in order for us to ensure that the assessment task that we give to our students is aligned with the K to 12 curriculum, and also we could develop 21st century learners. And inside the classroom, in general, we have two classroom assessment. Generally, learners are assessed in the classroom through different processes and methods. But it can be generally classified into two types of classroom assessment, which are formative assessment and what we call summative assessment. When we say formative assessment, we could say it is assessment for learning and assessment as learning. When we say assessment for learning, teachers again can make adjustment in their instruction. Whether there is some misunderstanding, there is misconception about the ideas, teachers can directly correct it, or whether the teaching strategy is not effective or is somehow not effective, therefore the teacher can replace it or modify it. Because this is the importance of formative assessment, it can be given anytime during instruction, whether it's before, whether it's during, or whether it's after instruction, it could be given because the results of formative assessment will give the teacher a deeper insight on the progress of our learners. And also, based from the results of the formative assessment, teachers can give recommendations to our students. And with that, assessment as learning is for our students. Assessment as learning will allow our students to have a reflection on their own learning, on their own progress. They could identify their own strengths and weaknesses. Or sometimes students can ask for help from the teacher, from the parents, from the peers, whenever they see that the formative assessment is somehow low. And on the other hand, we have what we call summative assessment, and it is noted as summative, or rather, assessment of learning. And usually it occurs at the end of a unit or at the end of a lesson, because this will reveal whether the content standards and the performance standards has already been achieved or has already been attained. And because it is given at the end of a unit or a lesson, the results of which are usually used in computing the grades of our dear students. With that, teachers must always ensure that we give different ways or different methods of assessing our learners so that all of the relevant knowledge, all of the relevant understanding and skills can be applied in the given assessment. Learners are assessed inside the classroom. Like I said, it can be assessed through formative and summative assessment, whether it's individual or collaborative. For formative assessment, it can be again divided into two parts. It can be individual or it can be collaborative. When we say individual formative assessment, we allow our students to demonstrate independently what has been learned or mastered through a range of activities. We allow our students to exercise their intrapersonal skills in exploring the assessment on their own and finding out whether they can or they cannot. And as an example of activities or formative assessments that we can give to our students, we could give check-up quizzes, we could give written exercises such as essays, we could also give performances individually, models, and electronic presentation. On the other hand, we have collaborative formative assessment that allows students to support each other's learning. And somehow it is called as peer assessment, wherein we allow our students to participate in groups to produce an evidence of learning. As examples, we could allow them to have discussions, role playing, and group activities. Like I said a while ago, formative assessment can be seen in different parts of the lesson. It can be seen before our instruction because it will reveal students' understanding of a lesson or a topic before direct instruction. Teachers can identify ideas or concepts that students misunderstand. It could also identify hindrances or barriers to the learning of our students. And from there, we could adjust as teachers. That's why we are called flexible teachers. Also, formative assessment can be seen during classroom instruction, wherein it will reveal the progress of our students in relation to the development of the learning competencies. That's why the result of formative assessment before classroom instruction is kept, so that whenever we give formative instruction during classroom instruction, the results here can be a basis whether the students have already improved or it remains stagnant or it's below the expectation level. From here, we could give immediate feedback to our learners. We could identify the gaps in the lesson. And lastly, to make decisions. Decisions whether to proceed to the next lesson, decision whether to reteach, whether to provide corrective measures, or whether to give reinforcement activities. And we could see formative assessment after classroom instruction because this will reveal whether the learning objective was already achieved. From that, here are examples of activities before, during, and after classroom instruction. For before, we could give agree and disagree activities. We could give interviews. We could have KWL activities, open-ended question, and practice exercises. For during classroom instruction, we could have multimedia presentations. We could observe our students, quizzes that are recorded but not graded. Because, like I have emphasized a while ago, summative assessment is used in computing the grades of our students. We could also have recitations, and lastly, simulation activities. And for the last one, we have checklists, discussions, performance tasks that emanates from the lesson objective that we have for the day or for the lesson, art quizzes as well, and written works. For our summative assessment, we have different components actually. We could divide the summative assessment into three parts. For the first one is what we call written works. When we say written works, it assess learners' understanding of concept and application in written format. It usually prepares learners for quarterly assessment. That is why it is usually given at the end of the topic or unit. It usually includes long quizzes, unit tests, because it will strengthen the learner's test taking skills. The next component is what we call performance tasks. We allow learners to show what they know and able to do in diverse ways, wherein students create or innovate performance products and do performance tasks. Actually, when we say performance tasks, it will boost students' creative and critical thinking while aiming for the lesson objective of the lesson or of the day. Performance tasks will involve our students in the learning process, whether it's individual or whether it is collaborative. And for the last part is what we call quarterly assessment, wherein students are measured at the end of the quarter. It is usually given in an objective type of test, but some subjects may require performance based assessment or a combination of objective test and performance based assessment. Quarterly assessment will synthesize everything. It will synthesize all the learning skills, concepts, values learned in the entire quarter. That is why it is given once at the end of every quarter. And for the grading system that we have used in the electronic gradebook, still it is based from the DepEd Memorandum number 8 that we have in the Department of Education. It is based on, like I said, it is based on the K to 12 basic education program. Okay. Here is the weight components per subject, where when we say weight components, it is the percentage of written works, performance tasks, and quarterly assessment of different subjects that we teach to our students. The table shows the weight percentage of every subject. As an example, let's pick language, wherein the written works is 30% of the grade of our students. Performance task is 50% of the grades of our students. And quarterly assessment is 20% of the grades of our students. And let us compare it with the subject mathematics, wherein the written works now is 40%, the performance task is 40%, and the quarterly assessment is 20%. And from this example, we could see that the weight components may vary from subject to subject, whether to emphasize on the written works or whether to emphasize on the performance task. Usually, these weight components can be seen in our curriculum guide given to us for every subject that we handle for every year. And how are grades computed at the end of the school year? Let me give you a run through of a traditional method of computing grades, and let us compare it later on with the discussion of my co-speaker, uh, wherein he will discuss the E-Gradebook. For this one, this is a sample class record of English or language. That is why the written works is 30%, the performance task is 50%, and the quarterly assessment is 20%. The first step is to record all the raw scores of our students. As an example, learner A here have these raw scores for the written works, while this is for the performance task and this is for the quarterly assessment. The next step is to get the total or get the sum of this raw score. And when we add this up, the total is 145. For this one, it's 100, and for the quarterly assessment is 80. The next step is to get the percentage score, wherein the learner's raw score, the total raw score here, for example, 145, is divided by the total highest possible score. Wherein, if we do that, we could get 90.63. From there, we must get the weighted score, wherein we are to multiply this percentage score to the weight components. And we could get the weighted score, which is 27.69. After which, we add all the weighted score to get our initial grade. From this initial grade, we are to look into the transmutation table that we have in the department, which is also included in the DepEd Memorandum number 8, wherein the transmutation of 84.86 is 90, wherein this 90 is reported or reflected in our report cards per quarter. These tedious tasks will be lessened if we are to use the e-gradebook that will be presented by my co-speaker after my discussion. And after reporting the grades or computing the grades, we are to talk about the learner's promotion and retention. If the student gets a final grade of at least 75 in all learning areas, the student will be directly promoted to the next grade level. However, if the students do not meet expectation in not more than two learning areas, meaning one or two subjects, the student has a failing grade in one or two subjects. With that, the student will undergo remedial classes with the subject that has a failing grade. Remedial classes are given or are conducted after the final grades has already been computed. And to be promoted to the next grade level, the student must pass this remedial class. However, teachers, we as teachers must always remind, must always approach, must always remediate our students whenever we see that the scores of our students are already below the expectation. We must approach our students already. We must um, tap our parents to have a parent-teacher meeting on what shall we do with the student. We must go always the extra mile in tapping and reminding our students, because this process will eventually avoid the possibility of students getting a failing mark in our subject. Because if not, if students did not pass the remedial class, the learner is retained on the same grade level. And lastly, if the students did not meet expectation in three or more learning areas, students is retained or the student is retained in the same grade level. And to whom do we give or to whom do we report classroom assessment? Basically, we report it to the child or the students because it will promote self-reflection. It will promote personal accountability among our students so that later on in life, they could decide whether they must give or they must go the extra mile to succeed, or whether they see that they are below the expectation level, they could have their own reflection on that. Also, we could report it to the child's remedial teacher if it is possible or if it is applicable, wherein it is important so that the teacher could know the status or the status of the student, and it will be the basis of the remediation. This will pinpoint what topic will he or she emphasize on, or what topic will he or she have a greater discussion on. Next is the teacher of the next grade level, wherein it is also important so that the teacher could have a wider view, a bird's eye view on what students will he and handle on that school year. And lastly, and the most important one, is our parents and our guardians. Our dear parents must also know the progress of their child because they are our partners in honing in molding the minds and skills of our students. And here is an example of a card that we give in the department. And another equally important part, aside from the grades that we compute and that we report to our students, is the report on learners' observed values. The goal of the Department of Education is to produce holistic learners equipped with 21st century skills to assure that students also acquire correct positive values and attitudes. The report on core values is also reflected in the report card. The core values, maka-Diyos, makatao, makakalikasan, and makabansa, has already been translated to behavioral statements so that teachers could easily monitor their students. And here below, we have a non-numerical rating that will be used to report the learner's behavior. And to end my discussion for today, I will leave you with a simple quotation from Alex Clarkson, wherein it says, "Each assessment is an opportunity for feedback and help, not a dreadful exercise in humiliation. Always remember, my dear teachers, let us not be a hindrance in the goals and in the success of our students. We, teachers, must push them to leap the boundaries in order for them to succeed in life. Later on, they will be reminded that this teacher helped me to achieve my dreams. We should not be recalled as the teacher who hindered me in reaching my dreams. Let us go the extra mile to our students. With that, a pleasant evening, a pleasant morning, and afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Wow, what a wonderful presentation, Miss Trisha. That was really amazing. You could see the passion that, we teachers should have, not just for the teaching per se, but all throughout the process in detail, from the assessment down to everything that we do as teachers.
Yes,
And
they say that teachers are the modern heroes here in the new normal, especially in times of our pandemic.
that's true. And I totally agree with that. Indeed, we are. Indeed, we are. So, Mom Trisha, we are really so privileged that we're here with you tonight with your in depth, comprehensive presentation of classroom assessment. Imagine we could just, we could, because these are like expensive things that we could enroll ourselves into, and not to mention these are tackled into postgraduate courses, and now we're here, listening to your expertise for free. So this is really so amazing for us, and we have lots of learning and takeaway from you. So, and I believe that this session will be effective as well for our audience because of the shared intelligible knowledge you had with us. So thank you so much for enlightening us with your wisdom and for your contribution with your precious time for us. And this knowledge you shared is definitely relevant to our audience, I myself included, and no doubt this will be beneficial, especially with the in detailed techniques, the formative, summative for our teachers. And what I would just want to appreciate your lovely and comprehensive presentation once again, and thank you so much for your valuable time.
Thank you,
All
ma'am.
right,
Thank you.
you're welcome. See you later in the Q&A. All right, so our dear audience, it's time to move to our next speaker. We've got Mr. Mark Rostam C. Valentine. But before we move to our next speaker, once again, I want to remind all of you to please support us by sharing, tagging, commenting, and mentioning your friends on the comment box. So we will give the e-certificate link in the comment box later. And if you will face any problem, you can collect the e-certificate directly from our website at www.eduigp.com. And after collecting your e certificate, please don't forget to celebrate with IGP by checking in into our page. All right, without much further ado, our next speaker is from the Department of Education Philippines, a teacher three with a teacher three position at Pada Pada National High School, Doctor of Philosophy, a research coordinator, a member from the Division of Education Research Council of Tarlac. And let's welcome everyone, Mr. Mark Rostam C. Valentine.
Yes, ma'am. Hello,
There
ma'am.
you go.
Good evening.
Good evening to you too.
Thank you for those kind words.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm just checking on my presentation. Is it working now?
Right. Yeah, I think it's loading now. Okay, there you go.
Is it in full screen already, ma'am?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
All right, the
Good
floor is yours.
morning, good afternoon, and good evening, IGP viewers and audience, our dear listeners all over the world. Again, I am Sir Mark Rostom C. Valentin, all the way from the Philippines, to be specific, in the province of Tarlac. It is my second time to speak in IGP, and I hope I could serve the same best way I did during my first time to present here. Before, I was able to share about or a bit of something to know about components of quantitative researching. But now it's about time for me to divulge something about grading and reporting system. And of course, an innovation we want to introduce to everybody from the DepEd Region 3 of Philippines, which is the E-Gradebook for teachers. By the way, I would like to greet all our empowered educators all over the world for doing a great job during this time of pandemic, and we all deserve to receive sweetest greetings from one another. Happy World Teachers Month to every educator in the world. And I would
Yes.
like, yes, ma'am, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to people behind the approval of my presence here again in IGP, to share Kaushik Data, Ma'am Roha Mina, and to our beautiful moderator, Ma'am Dale.
Okay.
And of course, thank you so much for the opportunity to our local leaders as well from the Philippines. We have Sir Nestor, who is also a speaker a while ago, to our SDS or Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Pozon, Sir August, my EPSBR, Dr. Gemma, my principal, and my head teacher, Ma'am Susan, to Sir Reden, our mentor, and to my community, to be specific with my school, Dipadapad National High School from Tarlac Province. So for my as for my role in this evening's session here in IGP, I would like to pay focus on the following presentation outline. So the first thing I would like to share to you would be the functions of grading and reporting system, followed by the types of grading and reporting system. Then we'll try to touch a bit of the procedures on assigning letters or letter grades and computation of grades. How do we differentiate norm and criterion reference grading? And of course, the most important thing is for me to introduce to you the E-Gradebook for teachers. To my fellow educators, both from Philippines and all over the world, I know we share same sentiments on the present condition of the system of education. We are having or we are experiencing right now. In the continuous changing conditions in our education, we remain innovative, creative, and be the best teachers we can be. But part of that, the culture we get to involve, there are mechanisms and principles we continuously employ and hold into because they are already part and parcel of the educational system. Teaching requires assessment process in order to have a clear lens of uh, identification whether learning really takes place in the teaching learning process. The picture you see on your screen could not be the first time ever you have seen it and learned the message from within it. Our students are the diverse group of creatures. That's the message. That's the message of the picture I'm showing. So we consider our students as diverse group of creatures with different characteristics, nomenclature, background, capacity, talents, and motivation. They differ from each other. And it is really true in this sense that no two person has alike fingerprints, right? So on the next slide is a storyboard. And on this storyboard, it is perceivable to say that in education, we misconceptualize the true understanding of authentic learning. We treat every learner to achieve the set uh, learning goals in a one-way strategy. That is why we come up to disappointments for not achieving the goals as reflected by the student's performance and understanding. We must keep in mind that teaching and learning are joint process. For you to say that you taught the learners, we can see the reflection of the effects on their attitude, application, and understanding of what we taught them. And sometimes we need to reflect, do we really make sense of what we are making them to do or to do so as part of our assessment? We train dogs to whistle. Even there is this already high doubts for them not to be able to do it. We try to make birds swim, but we know their strengths are in the sky. We often deny to give highlights of applications to students where they can outshine and take a spotlight. Just like as how we want us to be treated, not to be given with tasks where our kryptonites lie. Let's try giving chances to learners to take spotlights where they can show their skills. Unless we wanted them to learn something beyond what they already know, that is why we are giving set of options when we are assessing their skills and the learning acquisition. Here are some of the questions we bear in mind when conducting assessment. What should I count? When we do assessment, the scoring, the recording, the grading, and the reporting system, that whole process, what do we really take into account? Am I after the achievement or effort too? I know it would be hard for you to accept that when we count or evaluate for students' learning, we only need the achievement. We need to set aside the efforts first. I know hearing these words from me, you would probably question me on being a teacher. As educators, I know our heart is dominated by our empathy towards the students' efforts. There is nothing wrong about that. Grading should be objective and should be right after to authentic achievement. But if you want to inject points for effort, maybe do it in the scoring process. Uh, do not do not inject it or apply it on the end process of assessment, which is the grading and the reporting system. Or just like how we take ratings or we receive ratings from our board examinations. Isn't it? Efforts were not considered for the pointing system, right? Because if so, we are not actually interpreting achievements, but empathy and compassion. That is why, in the early part of assessment procedures, we need to have clear plans about what different what different assessment strategies are we going to give or to employ equity among all our students. Based on these early considerations, our part as objective judges and assessors should take place. How do I interpret student scores? Student score or numbers can give powerful interpretations. And as educators, this is one of our questions and predicament on how we can interpret student scores rightfully. Lots of ways are there to help us interpret. There are standardized way of scoring with corresponding interpretations. Somehow, rubrics also play important role on this aspect. The important thing about this, before the assessment takes place, we already have a definite plan on how we are going to interpret the scores. This is to adhere on the objectivity on the assessment process. Where do I compare student scores? There are also times that teachers need to decide on how to interpret these scores by comparison. At times, we compare student scores to others' scores. This is to see who excel among these students. Through this, we can see whose students get better scores on a specific competency than the others. On the other hand, We may also try to interpret scores by comparing the scores achieved to a standard point or criteria for comparison. This is to measure at which point do these learners can show a level of achievement rate against a standard criterion or level they are expected to demonstrate enough learning or high point of learning. Sometimes you also interpret scores of students against their self capabilities. Perhaps after a longer time enough to say we were with the student, or we can describe learners' capabilities already, we can draw conclusions whether they exhibit good progress each day or each time we make assessments on them. How do I display student progress or strengths and weaknesses to students and their parents? That's another question. That's another question we build. As educators, we are also challenged by the process on which we undergo reporting of students' progress, on how we display their weakness, their strengths as students, carried over the period of time we conducted the assessment. We look forward on how we are to conduct a call for conference to report everything about the student and the parent. Going on our first topic, functions of grading and reporting system. Uh, Grading and reporting, the computed grades, play important functions in the educational system. Primarily, what we know about the function of grades is to give feedback to students so they can take charge of their learning and to provide transformed information from the evidences we gathered to those who support the learning process, like us, the teacher, and their parents. The first function of the grading and reporting system is to enhance student learning. I think we compute grades because we somehow want our students to learn from these achievements they perform. If we can get to report this academic standing to our students, we can affect their learning lifestyles. And we can at least try to divert their attitude to learning and study habits. If grades are low and students will perceive it as an alarm to call on their attention, students would probably work harder to perform better. So grades are standards for oneself, which you may consider as your mark to to make a progress and be better as you move onward. So oftentimes, students see it as their working motivation, which they want to exceed in order uh, to make a visible progress. Through these grades, we can be able to show clearly their strengths and weaknesses so that they can make adjustments of actions which they need to prioritize improving during classroom discussions and assessments. Through the grades, we can also provide a clear reflection of their personal social development. How? From this, they can be able to see how they got to perform tasks in the school while interacting socially with the group they try to belong with. If I were the student, I can even get a chance to reflect whether am I doing great for myself and for the others, whether I get a right choice of joining a group that affects my studying behavior, whether I get a progress or a negative effect. With this, I get to assess whether I make a right choice of a path as a student. Through these grades, I can be able to make them enhance their motivation, to make short-term goals into more feasible and long-term goals. So remember as well that grades are not meant only for student self-reflection. It also guides us teachers as it can indicate where teaching could be modified. That if we try to feed a well-defined and clarified instructional objectives for the students, uh, our instructional setup will go smoothly as well. So we also make use of these grades to reflect on our teaching strategies. It is kind of frustrating to know as teacher that learning is not exhibited through the grades because we made a wrong judgment or perhaps we employed a wrong strategy when we taught those of specific learning competencies to our students. That's frustrating. Two, another function is the to report to parents or guardians. Parents or guardians also need to know how their children perform and behave in the class or in the school. Through the report cards, they can be able to see their child's behavior as a learner. And it is something that is important to them because the mere fact they enroll their child in a school, it means they have a dream for their child or their children, which is to hold a hope in education. And so they entrusted us that aspect, which is to give the TLC, the tender loving care for the students. If they see progress, it gives them confidence that their child is doing a great job, even without their presence. If they see a decreasing trend, it calls their attention to do something as parents to motivate and transform their children's behavior and attitude to learning. And at times, in a manner that some parents become hands-on with their children while learning. This grading and reporting system helps them to have a clear communication about what objectives are met and what plans should be carried out for betterment. And for the third function, we have the administrative and guidance uses. Of course, aside from students and parents' use or reflection about the grades, it will be the school's means for decision making as well. About what? About promotion, graduation, honors, and special awards for students. When students transfer, report of grades are also used for referencing and endorsement of the students to other schools or sometimes to employers, isn't it? When learners try to enter a job. And sometimes grades can function to provide input for realistic educational, vocational, and personal counseling for guidance. Grades and report cards. First, should promote and enhance learning rather than frustrate and discourage students. Two, these are given to students and parents are asked to sign this. Three, it calls for parent-teacher conferences such that report cards will effectively function as motivation for further learning. Allow me to share a thought about this one. Grading requires thoughtful and informed professional judgment. Actually, most nations have individual grading systems, unique for your own schools, for your own country or nation. However, several international standards for grading have arisen recently. Although we have lots of innovations nowadays when it comes to computations of grades, teachers' judgment has been shown and undeniably known to be more reliable. On a behavioral aspect, we have a separate assessment to students for that facet. It was no longer injected in the computation of grades, unlike before, that a certain criteria is allotted for the evaluation of the attitude of the learners towards learning the discipline. It's injected inside in our grades. Now, most educational sectors consider to have a separate assessment for this aspect. This is, however, to make an informed professional judgment to the students. Do not use grades as a weapon. Let us note on the role of the grades and the report card that these are not stops that makes frustrations to discourage students and to bully students. That's a that should not be. We better treat them as marks that build motivation to further learn instead to frustrate the student or to encourage the students that they need to make improvements or even to motivate them in a way that they are doing a great job in our class. Let us bear in mind that grading is essential to the instructional process. So teaching would mean nothing without assessment to take place. We all know that as teachers. Now, going to the types of grading and reporting system, there are lots of grading and reporting system. In the Philippines, we are greatly influenced by the culture of Spain and US as well, or United States. And our educational system is patterned with their systems as well. However, after the liberation of the Philippines in the late 20th century, the system changed radically as well. The first one is a traditional letter grade system. In here, students' performance are summarized by means of letters. Before, we have an equivalent verbal descriptors for A as excellent, B as good, C as average, D, which means needs improvement, and F for failure. So traditional letter grade system is actually easy to understand, but is of limited value when used as a sole report. They end up being a combination of achievement, effort, work habits, and behavior as a whole. That's the problem when we employ this one. But somehow, it is difficult to interpret, unlike numbers, which are so powerful when it comes to data analysis and interpretations or specific interpretations. And another problem about it, it does not indicate patterns of strengths and weaknesses in detail. Another type of grading system probably we had in our respective country. If not, at least we know them, or if not, encountered them in some institutions being employed for their grading system. So we have the pass-fail system. This utilizes a dichotomous grade system. So there's only two outcome. It's either you pass or you fail. In pass-fail system, either a student has complied and reached certain standards. So in which he passes or he failed to do so and gets a failing mark. So popular in some courses in college, perhaps, they follow this. Not very much practice in basic education. However, in the Philippines, we associate the numbers with a corresponding interpretation to tell that a student passed or failed the subject. Does not This one does not provide much and detailed information. As we clearly see, there's only two outcomes about the status of the child. It's either pass or fail. Well, what he or she only knows, he received a verdict from the teacher, but does not know where his or her performance lies within the range of that passing score or that failing score. That's the hard thing about this kind of grading system. A disadvantage about this also is that students tend to work to the minimum only, just to pass. Isn't it? They are much after with the minimum standards because the level does not matter anymore. What they only want is to pass the subject. So in mastery learning courses, no grades are reflected until mastery threshold is reached for this kind of grading system. And actually in the Philippines, this was actually proposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, the target grading system supposed for the new normal setup during this time of pandemic. Just a proposal. Many education experts saw this to be appropriate to be employed while having no face-to-face classes. Because classroom assessment is really a struggle for us teachers nowadays. So anyway, we just arrived with the interim guidelines and stick on what should be assessed among the learners despite the pandemic situation as released by the Department of Education. Another one is the checklist of objectives, a grading and a reporting system as well. So in here, the objectives of the course are enumerated. So after each objective, the student's level of achievement is indicated. It's either in numerical form or in verbal form. This one employs a very detailed reporting system as it provides indicators, standards, or objectives. They are written that our students must meet over expectations. So this is more informative for parents and students as they can see results of evaluation for each objective. Okay, set in the task they are given to we are giving them. So from there, they will be able to see which they have taken well and which were not. But on the part of the teacher, this is somehow time consuming. Time consuming to prepare. And a potential problem I can see with this is we may encounter uh, a problem on the keeping of the list as a manageable one, as understandable one it can be. Here's a sample checklist I search. Yes, as you can see, we have the indicators, we have the objectives that students need to meet when given the task. So all the teacher need to do is to give a remark or at least give an evaluation of how the student performed about the task given to them. For part of the reporting system, we have the letters to parents or guardians. So letters to parents and guardians are useful supplement to grades, of course. However, they are limited value as sole report because they are very time consuming to prepare. So on letters, we can't deny that this can be time consuming to prepare as well. Students have different ways of learning, progress report, and stories to be told. That's why we as teachers need to think about that carefully. That's why we get accountable of what we report through the letter. We need to be smart in writing our words, not to affect the way how the parents will receive and accept our messages and report. These ones sometimes require much sensitivity as letters cannot explain real emotions from within. Or sometimes parents take misunderstandings with the letters when not written well. So accounts of weaknesses are often misinterpreted by parents and guardians. But at times, we find this effective as a way of reporting to the parents, especially to such cases that parents or guardians could not take a physical appearance for the conference with the teacher and the school due to busy or conflict schedules, as always. Sometimes we can't deny that some parents are really shy type of people, that they prefer receiving report cards and letters rather than attending to physical conversation with professionals like us because they get to feel intimidated. Another way of grading and reporting system as well is the portfolio. As this is a set of purposefully selected work with commentary by student and the teacher. So portfolios are useful for showing students' strengths and weaknesses as well. So this illustrates range of students' work and progress. So showing progress over time or stages of a project, teaching students about objectives or standards they are to meet. So we may use portfolio. So I myself often employ this strategy because I find portfolios relevant for my reporting. These are compilation of evidences. And if ever I see a potential argument about the achievement status of a child, I can immediately refer to it, go back to it to verify things out. Besides, these are concrete evidences we can hold when having conferences to the parents or guardians of the students. Of course, another strategy is the parent-teacher conferences. This requires parents of pupils to come for a conference with a teacher to discuss the pupil's progress. So in this strategy, it may be really useful for us to have a two-way flow of information and getting more information from parents. Okay, hearing it directly from them. We can much appreciate better if things will be clarified and reported in a two-way channel. So the thing about this is we get to know their child in the school, try to explain it to them, and also we can get to know or hear stories about the child based on the stories of the parents and explanations on how the child behaves at home. So, however, this system produces limited value as a report because most parents do not come for such conferences. Unfortunately, it really happens that they do not come. And like what I said about portfolios, when available, these become useful as basis for discussion during conferences. You may bring them during conferences. It is important that when we conduct conferences, we come prepared in a way that we already know what to say and we are accurate with our reports or what we are saying or trying to say to the parents because those are parents. Their heart are still with their child or their children. Next to be discussed is the assigning of the letter grades and computation of grades. Not in detail, but I only want to touch a bit of what is grades all about. These are actually numbers or numerical quantities arrived at several or after several data on the student's performance are combined. And this must include only achievement. We are being firm that when we are always trying to say when we compute grades, let's look with achievements. This is very important to avoid the temptation to include effort at first hand. So for less able students, because it is difficult to assess effort or potential, and it is difficult to distinguish ability from achievement and effort when combined in some way. So grades would mean different things for different individuals kasi. So the system must not allow students to mask their level of understanding with their attendance, their level of effort, or other peripheral issues. So we must always employ standard-based system. As per guidelines, all we need to do is to properly weigh each component to create a composite. Then actually criterias are normally agreed upon by officials released through memorandums, such as in the Department of Education. We always hold on to the memorandums or DepEd orders we are receiving from the central office. So grades should have meaning. If you are using letter grades or numbers, they should have meanings. So this allows the importance of our verbal descriptors such as excellent, very good, passed, or failed. We need also to ask whether the grades measure levels of proficiency on standards. So when computing grades, we need to challenge the status quo. Are the students really learning or are they just good at playing school? We have students that are good at playing school yet have not mastered any learning standard. We also have students who have mastered the learning standards, yes, but do not complete homeworks and tasks. So if we grade only on mastery of a standard, except nothing but mastery, students learn and understand what is expected for success. So what I also like about grades is that it serves as a launch pad to other reforms. It launched another thing. So it will provide opportunity for academic conversations with other teachers. Yes. So at faculty room, we try to conversate with others, try to ask them, how is this student try to perform in your class? Okay, this is to better understand the status of every learner. Now, moving to the norm versus criterion reference grading system. As teachers, we have different techniques on how we give scores, we give grades. It's either we employ norm or we employ that criterion reference we are referring to, in which we uh, deviate for focusing with the other facets of of the learning style of the child or the student. So in norm reference, grades may reflect relative performance. So such as scores are compared to other students. So my score will be compared to others so that the teacher can see at which level I performed well. So it's not about comparing how I did well, to a common standard for everybody. So grade depends on what group you are in, not just your own performance. So typical grade may be shifted up or down depending on your on group's ability. So if your classmates are really high, then you are only on this level, and if teachers would compare your performance to them, perhaps your performance is shifting down. That's why we are telling in norm reference, it depends on the group's ability or performance. So this is widely used. Most classroom testing we employ is the norm reference. As for my experience, I think norm reference uh, can make more of an effect of shifting up for the grades of the students rather than shifting down. Kasi when we have students to perform, most probably in most cases, not all get so high scores. They just perform a bit the same across the performance of everybody within the group. That's why norm reference is considered as good when we try to lift a child, a student in our class. So in criterion reference, in here, grade does not depend on what group you are in, but only on your own performance compared to a set of performance standards because grades may reflect absolute, okay, absolute performance. So grading is a complex task because first, you need to clearly define the domain for criterion reference. You need two, you need to clearly define and justify the performance standards they need to perform. And three, grading should be based on criterion reference assessment. So conditions are hard to meet except to complete mastery learning settings for criterion reference. Because criterion reference test compare a student's knowledge and skills against a predetermined standard, CAT score, or other criterion. So the problem is grades are inconsistent with the standard-based performance. Remember that each child has his or her own standard. That's the problem with criterion reference. So also grades matter greatly for teachers, as teachers who often experience the tension of performing two conflicting roles as coach and as judge. As coach because we instruct, we guide the student. As judge because we evaluate students' work. Teachers ourselves are often judged by the grades we give. That is why we need to utilize a well-defined scheme and a powerful tool to aid us with this job in teaching, which is the computation of grades. Now I'm about to introduce the E-Gradebook, an electronic class record for teachers. So letter grades do not offer quality feedback. Researchers had recommend getting rid of the letter grades already. Let's go out of that old grading system or method. So if you ask a teacher today to describe a student's learning progress, the teacher would most likely begin opening his laptop or his computer and his computerized gradebook. The gradebook typically allows the teacher himself or herself to attach various weights to different criteria in the subject matter. So computerized grading programs are ubiquitous or pervasive in the modern education. It is actually included in the ranks of the best-selling computer software in education. Aside from its appeal and convenience to the teachers, record keeping is simplified. Data management is so easy, and it seems to objectify grading system. However, there are drawbacks, and we can deny about that. Now, what is E-Gradebook? Before the school year of every academic calendar starts, we teachers are preparing for our staffs, like learning materials, activity sheets, and many more. One of our staff is the class record we prepare. The class record is actually a document that contains the record of the performances of our students. So in several institutions across the world, class record is distributed. Some are still printed, yes, and some are now designed to be digitized. The teachers will use it by transferring the grades of students from source, from the quizzes, in any form to the class record. So, but human error is always present in the computation of grades. The time it takes to transfer the record from the source to the template is also of great concern and time consuming. So according to Deliosa in 2013, the deployed electronic class record was very useful to teachers. In the Philippines, electronic class records were developed as a substitute to the conventional ways of recording the performance of the students. And by now, one of our aims in the Department of Education as well is the reduction of tons and tons of papers we use each year in our job. So E-Gradebook now actually is an innovation that holds to the idea of converting the conventional way of recording student achievements and outcomes to digitized one. So it is one of the automated grading sheets and class records for teachers, which was actually developed by many. But in our area, we also have an innovation developed by our regional supervisor from the Philippines, Dr. Nestor Nasca. So E stands for electronic as it holds true to be understood as an electronic or digitized material using the Microsoft Excel. So E-Gradebook is powered by the system and features of Microsoft Excel that caters our need for convenient way of recording students' performances as we are now in the new normal education. And oftentimes, we face our screens as it serves as our mainstream for our new normal job of teaching and reporting because we are now screenagers. And also, this supports the adherence of our commitment as educators on becoming 21st century teachers as we try to flesh out from within us the computer literacy. So the E-Gradebook caters all types of Excel formats and computer system. So as part of the necessary and prerequisite knowledge of the users before its operation is the basic knowledge of Microsoft Excel. So Microsoft Excel was utilized because of its powerful features and capability on arithmetic operations. When you try opening the material on your laptops or computers, the first structural interface you're going to see is this one. That includes the information tab, and it shows the information pane or sheet. So in the information sheet, it is here that you need to fill out the information and criteria on this sheet, except those that are not included yet in your grade or in the grading system. So the information it requires are teacher's name, the assignation, subject, year and section, grading period, the school year, the head or coordinator, his or her designation, the curriculum where you are employing this material, the name of the school, and the name of the advisor. So below it are the criteria needed. In the Philippines, we Filipino educators just need to follow the criteria set in the DepEd Order number 8, series of 2015. But in the new normal, we are currently following for the DepEd Order number 31, series of 2020. The interim guidelines for the grading system in the new normal. So from there, we only have two outcome criteria or indicators in the light of the pandemic situation, namely written works and the performance task. On the next tab, we have the grading sheet tab. And this is how it looks when you click the second tab on the lower left of the main frame or pane, sorry. So it is on this grading sheet tab that you can type the name of your students. So the maximum number of cell available is 50. It means that only 50 students can be placed, including the male and female. Otherwise, you can just copy the worksheet if your student is more than 50, or if you're preferred to separate male and female. As per instructions in using this material, you can actually type the number of percentage on the second column of each criteria depending on the weight of each criteria in the subject you are teaching. So do not just include the sign of percentage. So it must be a whole number and the two must sum up to 100, of course. This is the pane for the written works tab where we make an input for the scores or raw scores of the students for the written works. And this is for the performance task. So on this highlighted cell, again, there are more than 10 provided columns where you could place the score or the scores achieved by the students. So the upper portion highlighted with the light blue color is where you input the number of items. Then blank cells are automatically filled up with the lowest grade, while the students that are excused during the test will not be counted. So this means that the total score will be divided by number of administered tests. So note on this part, the names and transmitted grades are actually automatically generated based on the names from the grading sheet tab. So uh, don't type anything on this sheet for the names if the criteria is not included. On printing, of course, you may generate your hard copy of grading sheet from the grading sheet tab. So the printout is programmed with the 8.5 by 13 paper or so. So always use long or the legal paper when printing your grading sheet when using this innovation. So this worksheet is in read-only file and write protected in order to retain the functionality of this worksheet and prevent users to accidentally change the formulas and cell locations. So it also has the help tab, which will serve as your guide in utilizing and entering the data in it. So that's it. That's the E-Gradebook innovation. So I guess we have lots of innovations across the nations, across the different nations around the world, around the globe. So all we need to do is to endorse it to help each other, we teachers, so that we can aid or facilitate our work or job as teachers. So especially in the time of pandemic, uh, those who are having modular distance learning, what we care more of about during this time is the checking of lots of papers coming from students. So from that situation, we can think of we have a lot of things to do. So if competition of grades would also give burden for us teachers, that would be another thing to talk about as teachers. That's why we teachers, we are really superheroes because we are being considerate enough of the lots of things we do and offer to our students and every stakeholders in our profession. So let me just end my presentation with a short conversation story, as in super short. So a grandfather planting seeds in his garden was asked by his grandson, how do you make the seeds grow? So the grandfather replied, I can't make the seeds grow, but I can provide the best conditions for them to grow. Just like for a child inside a classroom, we don't actually modify them. We don't mold them directly with our hands and our own knowledge, but we only provide the necessary conditions around them to develop so well. So in assessment, let us not make these children believe that they are incompetent, incapable, and unskilled students because they cannot achieve a high standard we set for everybody. So let us just provide each student their own track for race with different finish lines to meet. So with this, they will be more confident, they will become more confident, and will feel they belong to a community where they can provide and contribute something out of their best skills and knowledge. So once again, I am Mark Rostom C. Valentin. Thank you for listening, and I hope you really learn something about the grade book for teachers. Hello, ma'am. I cannot hear you po.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I was on mute for some reasons. All right. So, yeah, thank you very much for that enlightening, empowering, and an in depth presentation on the right way to grade and to assess our students. It's a good reminder. I feel like, yeah, there are lots of things I need to recalibrate with the way I assess my students as well, personally, and on what we should count as educators and on how do we display students' progress or strengths and weaknesses to students and to their parents. We appreciate having this mysterious area clarified. And I especially loved the statement you mentioned. Let's give chances to our learners. That's why we give options. And these options, we have to really, as teachers, we really have to think creatively in order for us to be able to mold, to nurture every students that we have. So, your advice to always treat, encourage, and motivate students that they're great in the class and we bring out the best versions of themselves is especially a great reminders for us educators, or not as educators, maybe as parents as well. And we sincerely thank you for your contribution and for your precious time from your block timetable. We really appreciate that. So
Thank you,
that's it.
ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So, our audience, please be reminded again to keep supporting us by sharing, tagging, commenting, and mentioning your friends on the comment box. We will give the e-certificate link in the comment box, and if you will face any problem, you can collect the e-certificate directly from the website www.eduigp.com. And after collecting your e certificate, please don't forget to celebrate with IGP by checking in into our page. And one more thing. All right, so let's have the Q&A floor, and please feel free to go ahead and ask questions that you have in mind, our lovely audiences. All right, and while we're waiting, let me just inform you as well that for tonight, since we've got four speakers, then there's no quiz competition. We'll go ahead to Q&A part already. So we will utilize the time, okay? Because this is way more important than the quiz itself, because quiz as defined is more of recalling, comprehension. according to the higher order thinking skills. All right, so let's keep waiting for your questions. Let them come up. All right, we've got one here. The question is for Sir Valentine. Is e-gradebook free of use?
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. The person behind the question is anonymous. So the Facebook
Yes.
user who sent this message, actually, is e-gradebook is for free, I believe. But as part of the protocol, I guess we just need to adhere with the protocols set for usage with the different tools. We try to adapt, especially across other nations. So the e-gradebook I presented was actually developed by Dr. Nuesca, who was also a speaker a while ago, our regional supervisor in mathematics in DepEd Region 3. So if sir would grant your request to use the e-grade book, I guess that would be free as long as you have your laptop and you have a Microsoft Excel installed in your laptop.
Yeah,
I see. Wow.
can I talk, Sir Mark?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Uh, yes, we can give a copy, but it may require enhancement that will be suited to your country. No? You can develop your own. Uh, we give you the idea, so I think you could develop one also. So be setter, lead the way. No.
Yeah. Making it to global e-grade
Yes.
book. All right. Next question for Sir Mark Ruston. Why do we need to align content standards to that of performance standards?
Yes. Part of the discussion of Ma'am Tricia was about content standards and performance standards as well. But being a teacher, it's important that we align what tasks are we giving our students based from what we are also teaching them theoretically and conceptually. It's hard to apply something that they don't know at first hand, isn't it? So just like how we work, we as teachers we did not become teachers by 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 just mere practice. We learned first some theories and concepts during our baccalaureate or bachelor's degree, isn't it? So we learn things first, but as teachers, do not give tasks that are not aligned with the different concepts we share to students. Unless, I told something a while ago na there are cases or instances that we teachers would like to challenge students that we give tasks just to deviate a little bit from what we have shared them or feed them uh, conceptually, just to see how they discover things out on their own, but not that much as challenging as other teachers would like to employ it. The students are already cramming, they don't know what to do. They would like probably say, teachers did not teach me this concepts yet, they are asking me to do this. Okay, so we need to reflect on those things.
All right. Well answered. Yeah. Okay. So the importance of content standards and performance standards. All right, another question, same to Sir Mark. Please, how do I assess the automated assessment Excel software? How do I assess? Or maybe the navigation of it.
Yes, the question is quite a bit confusing on
Okay.
my part, but let's just contextualize how Sir Michael would like to raise his question about how do I assess if the utilization, of course, you need to have a copy of it. But I firmly believe e-gradebook is actually a generic name for the e-class records we use as teachers. So we have lots of class records or electronic class records we use. So it's not I could say it's not that different from what they are using. So if they know how to use theirs, they saw how I showed the different features of the e-gradebook developed by Dr. Nuesca. They can see that it's quite friendly user. It's really, it's not just quite, it's really. This is not to defend the material itself because I'm the speaker. So since I'm not the one who developed it, I'm just a user of it. I could say it's really friendly user. The same time, what else do I need to say about how do I assess? Uh,
Yeah.
of course, materials are to be assessed. If we want to justify that they are really capable of being used in our local area, we need to undergo a clear validation and reliability process for you to say that okay, this material is would be effective in my country, in my area. Even though we are in the Philippines, I could say perhaps the material would not be that manageable or as friendly to the user across our nation. So that's it.
All right. Thank you for that, Pastor Mark. But we are teachers who can always adapt to anything that's given to us. All right. So let's have another one. Where can we get the e-grade book from Sir Elmar Moralde?
I think Sir Nestor can answer the question. Sir Nes, where they can get the e-grade book?
We can furnish them copy. They just give me their email address, no?
Wow.
Okay. But as I have said, the A grade book should be enhanced according to uh, the requirements.
Right. Considering the country we are in as well. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And we'll have one more from April Conception Lim. Should we use different e-grade books for different modalities chosen by learners? One for modular and another for an online learners? Oh, good question.
I think it's the e-grade book is applicable to every modality or any modality that the learners may opt to choose because it's like Sir Tom said, it's user friendly. Therefore, we could easily change the weight components based on the modality that the student have chosen. For example, if it's online, we could clearly different we could clearly differentiate it from the modular. Therefore, we could give respective weight components depending on the online or modular. However, I believe if you would agree with me, co-speakers, there is no difference in the assessment of modular and online. Based from the interim guidelines of the Department of Education, we have the same way of assessing whether it's modular, whether it's online, whether it's digital. We have the same way of assessing our students. Same components, same weight components, same assessment. The only thing is for modular, we give printed modules. They give us back the paper for online. We deliver it through online discussion. But nonetheless, the assessment is still the same. We assess them the same.
Yes, I just want to add with that, Ma'am Krisha. As stated in DepEd Memorandum Number 8, if you are teaching in the Philippines, so we have the same guideline as stated in DepEd Memorandum Number 8, Series of 2015. No matter what modalities that you're going to use, but e-grade book can be used. Anyway, as according to the discussion of Sir Mark, and when we validate that, it is easy and friendly user. Friendly user po talaga.
All right. Thank you so much. Moving on to the speakers. How can we avail for the e-grade book copy? Is it okay to share it with my fellow teachers? I am an elementary teacher from the Philippines. I find it helpful for the teachers, especially that the classes have started, and of great help for computing the grades more conveniently. Thank you.
Sir Nestor.
Well, just I have said a while ago, you can give me your email address and we will furnish you one. Thank you.
All right. So for those of you who want to avail the e-gradebook, then it is safe to say they could just send or maybe comment on the box their email addresses. Is that all right? Okay. So, yep, you can just comment your email addresses, and our kind resource speakers will email them to you. All right, one more from April. Should we use different e-grade books for different modalities chosen by learners?
I
Hmm.
think it's the same question. The concept of the question is somehow the same with the question a while ago. Like I said, whether it's online, modular, digital, we could use the e-grade book, and we could, whether it's like I said, whether whatever module or whatever online classes, still the e-grade book is usable.
All right, so thank you so much. I think that ends our Q&A part. Okay, thank you so much, our dear resource speakers. And let me just go ahead and do some announcement for our dear knowledge seekers. So we've got an announcement here. We have a free international webinar daily, and time is fixed. It's actually usually at 6 p.m., but this is Bangladesh time. So please make sure to check it on your own time zones. And we've got as well a double bonus with regular webinar. So along with our regular webinars, we have also added webinars on every weekend, Sunday morning for the month of September. So we've got September morning session date on the 26th at 9:30 in the morning. So please take note of that. And triple bonus. So not just one, not just two, but triple bonus. From October, we will start the webinar series program. You will get individual certificate for each webinar, and after submitting all certificates, you will receive a webinar series certificates. So these are highly focused teaching strategies, research, assessment, pedagogy, tools and techniques, professional development, and communication skills. Right. And our first webinar series program, we've got 5 parts webinar series. And the topic is about the authentic assessment in teaching and learning. So we've got part 1 on October 1st, part 2, October 4th, part 3, October 7th, part 4, October 10th, and part 5 on October 26th. Please take note of that. And we've got our second webinar series program. There are 4 parts webinar series, and the topic is teaching English as a foreign language and assessment. So part 1 will be on October 2nd, part 2 will be on October 6th, part 3 will be on October 20th, and part 4 will be on October 24th. Mark your calendars now. For October, it's going to be a busy month. And we've got our third webinar series program, and this is 5 parts webinar series. The topic, it's about the digital classroom engagement tools. Part 1 will be on October 11th, Part 2 October 12th, Part 3 October 13th, Part 4 October 14th, and Part 5 will be on October 15th. All right, so please be informed on September 21 about today's program name, the E-Gradebook for Teachers. Don't forget, for the certification process, you can wait for the code later, or you can definitely check it on our website at www.eduigp.com. So again, the certification link is now available in the comment box and pinned comment. Certification link will be available always in this program. So you can check the Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube description from time to time. And about the certification process, you can claim your certificate in 2 ways. First, direct link from comment box, pinned comment, or post description. Second, if you're not able to click this link, please directly browse the website at www.eduigp.com for all information together, and you can find today's program, then the process are the same. All right, and we've got the third step. You can also browse www.eduigp.com or the given link. You will redirect in this page of our website. So you can see the YouTube link, and you'll be able to see enroll now button. So please make sure to click on that so you will be enrolled. Now, if you are new, please create your account, and if you have an account already, you can just log in directly. After that, just find the seminar title and get enrolled. Okay, so step 4, we've got the certification code required. So for today's program name, E-Gradebook for Teachers, the code is IGP 666646. So remember, without code, no one is eligible for certificates. Now, with this code, you can claim your certificates anytime. So again, the code for today's program name, E-Gradebook for Teachers, IGP 6666. So maybe others have already claimed it, or if you haven't, then you could just try to claim it sometime later. All right, so here is the screenshot on how you could get the certificate as well. So make sure you've got the code and you can click get your certificates. Again, the code is IGP 6666. All right, so your certificate is now ready and anyone can verify your certificate. So isn't that amazing? All right. So our free international webinar certificates is auto downloadable in PDF file. You don't need to download it manually. So please check your device file manager. Sometimes it looks uncompleted, which is for your mobile screen size. In PDF file, everything is okay. If nothing is found in your file manager, please check your browser setting or update your browser or try with another browser, or better, try it from your laptop or your desktop. So please note of that. And definitely you can join all our live programs from Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube channel, and from our website. If anyone missed any program due to some unavoidable issues, concerns, still you can attend the previous webinars with verified certificate. So this is really amazing. And again, our dearest participants, if any problem raised to claim your certificates or any other issues, please don't hesitate to contact us. With the code, you can claim your certificates anytime. And our core team members are always ready in comment sections to support you to find solutions. So we've got our team customer service representative for FB page. We've got Miss Choriz Abejo Cabiros and Janet Cablao. So thank you so much. And we've got more from our team customer service representative. We have Miss Sherilyn Yamaguchi, Jonas Malingen, and we've got Mr. Alonso Warren Carriaga. Also, we've got our friends from team customer service representative from YouTube channel in the presence of Mr. Calvin Linatok, Mr. Joel Danoog, and Mr. Jeffrey Sayag. So, get ready for our next webinar that will be tomorrow, September 22nd, 2021, with the program name Doing Business and Training in the Online World. So we've got three resource speakers as shown in the screen. All right, and we've got one as well on September 24th, 2021. And the title or the name of the program is Character Formation in Educational Leadership with two resource speakers. Next one we have on September 25th, learning across areas of math, social studies, and assessment, with 3 resource speakers this time. And also on September 26th, we've got learners' mental health with 2 resource speakers. And it's going to be the 195th morning session. Wow, we've gone so far. Moreover, on September 26th, we have the program The Value of Enterprise and Entrepreneurship Education. We've got 3 resource speakers for this, and this will be an evening session. So make sure to book your schedule for this. And on September 27, we've got English literature and psychology role in education. It's going to be an evening session to be delivered by 2 resource speakers. Furthermore, we have on September 28th with a program named Innovative Teaching Strategies Amidst Pandemic. And this is going to be an evening session from 2 resource speakers. Please take note of that. September 29th, with the program Communication Skills in Teaching and Learning Process. It's going to be an evening session, and we've got 3 resource speakers. And on September 30th, another evening session, we have Healthy Living Equals Successful Living. So we've got 4 speakers. All right, so as we have mentioned earlier, on October, we've got an upcoming webinar. So please feel free to check on the webinar series 1. We've got part 1 on October 1st. Part 1 is going to be the authentic assessment in teaching and learning. And it's going to be an evening session. Make sure to book that. And then October 2, teaching English as a foreign language and assessment. And we've got 4 series for that. Also, another upcoming webinar on October 3, Acing the New Normal of Education. It's going to be a morning session. So, from the 3 resource speakers. And on October 3, we have as well a program on disaster preparedness and climate change adaptation from 3 resource speakers. It's going to be an evening session as well. And then webinar series starts, another one on October 4, 2021. and its name is Authentic Assessment in Teaching and Learning. That's the part 2. All right. Moving on to October 5, we have competency based teaching to be delivered in the evening by 2 resource speakers. And next will be on October 6, 2021. It is Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment Part 2 from 2 resource speakers. It's gonna be an evening session as well. Okay, so you can go ahead and double check everything from time to time. And again, your certificate code is on the screen now. Please take note of the instructions because the certificate code is required. Today's program name, E-Gradebook for teachers, and the code is IGP 6666. Remember, without code, no one is eligible for the certificates. All right, so dear knowledge seeker, I would love to sincerely thank you all for joining us tonight. Hopefully, you've learned something new and you will implement them in your life. Please leave a review on our page and kindly recommend it to your friends as well if you learned something or if we have at least helped you just a little bit. Don't forget to collect your e-certificate and please check in with IGP page. Please share the information with your friends and we hope to see you all again on our next webinar. Thank you so much. Please stay happy and stay safe. So